After doing tech review for nearly a decade, I've come to realize that only roughly like 20% of the products that come through here really excite me. This 10% over here is doing something novel, something we've never seen before, something that moves the industry forward in some way. This 10% over here is doing something that we have seen before, but at a price point that completely disrupts the market. The middle 80% is like boring retakes on the same stuff, similar price point. It's brands saying, oh, we have one of those too. Very rarely do I find a product that does both of these things. This is the Gremlin tube headphone amp from Apos Audio. It's an open frame Class A hybrid tube amp. It's fully balanced. It supports XLR or 4.4mm Pinacon, and it includes a matched set of Ray tubes, and it's priced at only $120 US. Full disclosure, Apos did send this stuff out for me to review today. I do have an affiliate link with them, but as usual, it's not going to change anything that I have to say about it. So 120 bucks. It's amazing how much overhead you can save when you don't have to design and produce a case for something. This open chassis has a design like someone built this on a workbench in their basement, and you're either going to immediately love it or hate it, but I think most audio nerds will probably find this pretty captivating. Super small footprint too, at only 5 inches wide, 3¼ deep, and 2.5 inches tall. Visually, the tube glow is really the star of the show here, which is helped along by some orange LEDs in the base of the sockets. There's also a jumper to turn on green underglow like Hector running 3 Honda Civics with spoon engines. I like that the thick plexi panels capture light from different angles too. My copy is a full retail unit, so they've got the brackets here to reinforce the XLR connections, and the volume knob here feels insanely smooth and slow. Very syrupy, very premium feel. The thing you have to be ready for is that this is just an amp. It's not a DAC amp, and it's fully balanced, which is going to mean two very important things. One, there's no single-ended output here, meaning your headphones or IEMs have to be balanced. You may not own anything that is, or you may have something that works, but you'll need to spring for a balanced cable. And two, you need to have a balanced DAC. And unless you're pretty deep in the hobby already, your DAC may not have balanced outputs. So if you don't see a 4.4mm out, or more commonly two big XLRs on the rear of your DAC, you're gonna need to go shopping. Cheapest would be a dongle style like this Moondrop Dawn Pro, and then a 4.4mm cable like this one I scored on Amazon for around 20 bucks. This is technically not the cleanest way to run this because you're using an amped signal going into the amp. Similarly, if you happen to be using a FiO K11 R2R DAC amp, you can set the unit to phone out mode, low gain. You need to be really careful not to go high gain, high volume, or you run the risk of potentially damaging the Gremlin. Setting it up like this will get you a signal out of the 4.4 where running in line out mode will not. But keep in mind, it's still running through an amp stage like the Moondrop dongle, so again, not the cleanest way to go. The first technically correct way to go would be like a topping D10 balance for around $140, and you'll need some cables for that setup too, but that locks you into using only balanced. I'd recommend going to 190 and doing the SMSL DL200 because this will offer you all the flexibility of single-ended, solid state, and balanced out to the Gremlin for tubes, and that would be a very flexible, very nasty setup at $310 plus cables. Apos has recently announced a DAC called the Merlin, produced in partnership with Geshelli, that's aiming for a sub $200 price point. It's designed to match the size and the aesthetic of the Gremlin. No official date yet, but I should have an early copy when they get close. There's a pretty decent amount of power on offer here at 1250 milliwatts at 32 ohms, so this will handle pretty much anything you throw at it. This is a hybrid amp, so you're going to get some character from the vacuum tubes first, and then that signal is going to be amplified via a solid state section. This allows for a cheaper price point versus an amp with an army of tubes, and it gives you the ability to run headphones that may not be ideal on a full tube amp. Being Class A means the transistors here are always open, always flowing current, and that generally means less distortion because they're not switching, and it also means more heat. And this unit does get very warm. Class A is generally not the most efficient, but it is generally the most expensive because Class A sounds good. And all that is why getting an actual Class A amp with some thick tube harmonics that's very flexible in the type of headphones or even IEMs it can drive at this price is so newsworthy. Better still when it includes decent tubes, which it definitely does. These are Ray tubes. They're really picky about what they use. They go through a ton of testing and QC. They're burned in for 24 hours ahead of time. And they come in sonically matched sets of two. They're binned according to machine measurements, but all the tubes that they sell an actual human listens to before they go out. Sold standalone, a set of these will get you for right about 55 bucks, so it's awesome to see these included here. They have a more sonically impressive, red, even lower distortion line called Select that are even more detailed in their presentation. They go for 180 for a matched pair. Ray Tubes is already very picky when binning their core line. Select represents the top 4% of that already binned batch. So of course you can swap to these, or you can order these bundled already, but I gotta say it feels pretty weird to order a $180 component for your $120 amp. I should point out too that while the Gremlin comes ready for 12 AU7 tubes, you can move a jumper and now you're compatible with 6922 tubes as well. I tested my unit with my Matrix Mini I Pro 3 as a DAC. I primarily listened to my Audio Organic and my ATH-RC 70X Refine, both of which live on my desk. I don't really use closed back headphones. I'll reach for an IEM if I need isolation. In this case, Crin's latest Project Meta because it has a 4.4 balanced option. If you're completely foreign to the concept, tube amps generally impart a warmth and a thickness to the sound. They're not generally as stark as a solid state can be. Sometimes they offer a little distortion, but not in a bad way. I've likened it before to the difference between listening to vinyl versus listening to a CD. The CD may be more technically precise and perfect, but it could lack soul. Rather than get super technical here, I'm going to tell you a little story. This headphone is the Aria Organic. Arias are very detailed, very bright planar magnetic headphones. Having heard an Aria before, this particular variant was recommended to me because of the wood in the ear cups, supposedly providing a more natural, warmer sound and less potential to be harsh on the high end. I was not prepared for how bright this headphone is. What's bright? Well, bright for me translates to something in the high mids that makes me wince when I hear it. It's harsh on my ear. It's that moment in the track where it builds up and then absolutely kicks in. That moment where you're supposed to go, oh shit, and instead I go, ooh shit. Not good. I went to Can Jam in New York and I tried this headphone on a couple different tube amps and decided that's what I need to help smooth this out. So I got my hands on the WA7 Fireflies because look at this thing. It helped to an extent. Honestly, not quite the extent I was hoping for. I actually didn't get to hear this specific amp at the show, but I made that classic audiophile error of deciding that because of the price point, it would be a safe bet. Now, the beauty of the Aria Organic being a planar magnetic headphone is that you can EQ this thing to the moon and back, which I do. It's very heavy-handed. I punched the bass up, I smoothed out the mids, and I added just enough highs to balance it to my ears, and that's how I've run it ever since. This is a detail monster. This is my favorite headphone that I own. The point of all this is that Matrix to the Gremlin with the core tubes to the Aria, I don't feel the need to EQ this headphone on 95% of tracks. The warmth this setup brings to the mids and the softness it brings to the high end sound absolutely incredible to my ears. I don't think it does a lot different to the low end, and these are so open, the soundstage is miles wide anyway, so I don't detect any difference there. The warmth in the mids though, this is where your guitars and your vocals live, and I got goosebumps so many times listening back through my collection. Particularly 90s alt-rock, shoegaze stuff, anything with really crunchy guitars sounds absolutely incredible. Vocals are somehow both intimate and ethereal at the same time. EDM tracks are crazy on these. And the wildest part was that I didn't feel like I was sacrificing anything to get that. There's no hum, there's no audible distortion. I didn't feel like I was at a loss for detail. It just adds seasoning. It sounds super cliche to say that this thing punches above its price point, but boy does it. I can't even venture a guess as to how much you would have to spend on a tube amp to get something that sounds similar to this. Even on IEMs, there's no background noise here at all. Running just off my Matrix on solid state, I find Crin's Meta to be very technically good. It's a competent performer. I don't find anything wrong with it. It just doesn't give me a wow moment anywhere. Running off the Gremlin, I got my wow moment, like plenty of them. I will say I found the warmth to be a bit much on the Refine on a fair amount of tracks. I actually prefer this headphone on a solid state because a lot of the sound I want is already baked into the tuning and the pad selection here. So all those listening notes were on the core tubes. Let's talk about these select tubes. I believe these to be technically superior. They are. I just don't enjoy them as much. These do seem to have more warmth in the low end for me, like the bass feels a little fuller, a little rounder, and that's good. But where the core tubes have softness in the highs, these are very detailed in the highs. It's like these have the low end warmth of tubes, but the high end detail and character of solid state. That may sound good to you. The issue for me is that all the cool stuff I said about using the core tubes and the Aria gets walked back here. The low end does sound fuller and rounder. That's great, but I lose the intimacy of the vocal in the mids and the brightness comes back. The Meta was back to being good, no wow. I didn't even really like the Refine on these because instead of being overly warm in the mids, they were just overly warm in the bass and the highs just sounded off to me. These are very high end, 12-month warranty, silk screened logo, gold plated pins. I'm sure there's a great use case for these, but I don't think the Gremlin is it, especially at this price, even with the bundle discount. These are filet mignon, when sometimes all you really want is a big greasy burger. I guess I really need to start listening to my Apos Connect. He sent me the Refine because he thought I would like them. I sat them in a closet for 2 months. I didn't make a priority out of them at all, and when I finally listened to them, I was floored. Very similar situation with the Gremlin. He's watched the channel for years, and evidently he's got a pretty good take on what I would personally enjoy. He hasn't missed yet, so sorry John, that's my bad, buddy. The Gremlin's a W for sure. I only have a couple criticisms. It offers an entry-level price point, but being fully balanced, it's not really an entry-level device because unless you made it a point to go balanced from the start, you're gonna need to invest a lot around it to take advantage. Even balanced cables for headphones you already own can be pretty nuts. The other is that I wish the Plexi was a little more resilient. Throughout shooting a product for review, I have to clean it a lot for the B-roll, and every time I cleaned this top Plexi piece, I added more scratches and mars to it. But that's the extent of the the criticism for me. It's silly to me that you can get all this for this price. I haven't watched any of the other numerous reviews on this thing, but I'd be really surprised if you found somebody out there that said otherwise. I'll be anxiously awaiting that upcoming Geshelli collab. In my book, Gremlin is another banger from Apos. Links down in the description for everything we talked about. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you all in the next one. Stay up.